Hello, I am Zinfogel. So, I am recording this a few hours before the new egg event starts, and frankly, I didn't think I would make this video. It's superfluous in a way because there isn't anything exciting on this egg batch whatsoever, and all of these are reruns from previous egg events. Regardless, I know some people still appreciate these overviews, so what the heck, let's get this done. This egg event encompasses Aerodactyl, Bellsprout, Geodude, Monkey, and Machamp, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're new to these Eggmon videos, I do all my comparisons with 4-star potential and 3 out of 3 affinity as the bare minimum. You kinda need this threshold for your Eggmons to not disappoint you. And I am going to regurgitate information from my egg guide. If you didn't know, I made an Eggmon compendium. This is basically a breeding analysis for literally every single Eggmon role that's been released. So this is just a video format for this guide. And something you need to understand is that, for example, here I am putting a Striker Kangaskhan on the best Eggmon tier, but it's still a poor Striker. It's not that good. It performs poorly compared to super effective strikers or strikers who have proper multipliers or Singnooks, but it is still kind of the best that Eggmons have to offer. So keep your expectations low. I consider Eggmons as crutches for new players, and for the most part, techs are the best investments because they do utility, and Eggmons have such poor stats that if you try to deal damage or tank with them, they are just not that amazing. It's just something for fun for the most part, but yep. Our first victim is a Striker Aerodactyl, the shiny for this batch, and a good way to describe this guy is Olivia Light, because you have a Stone Edge as your main damaging move, you have a 1-bar spam, and you can raise attack and crit, and you have some okay multipliers. Now, Aerodactyl's best perk is that it reaches perfect critical hit rate by itself, because you can raise crit by a couple of stages, and Stone Edge is a plus crit move, so you don't need crit support, and Aerodactyl comprises some rolls because of that, so you could feed Kukui alongside Aerodactyl and activate rock-type skills. However, Stone Edge comes at a downside because it has imperfect accuracy. So you kind of have to babysit this with Leaf or Sinasuelesa or what have you, otherwise you cannot rely on this guy to hit its targets, so that is a downside. Now the big issue here is that this guy is directly outclassed by Olivia on every single parameter. Olivia just has a better kit overall because she can fix accuracy by herself with her trainer move, and she has better multipliers, she has a grid that is extremely important, she can sing Nuki, and if you pull Olivia, then you don't even have to invest Eggmon resources to make her function, unlike Aerodactyl. So if you have Olivia, don't even think about raising this. But if you don't, then this is a decent investment because it's far better than garbage like Rourke or Signature Brock or Grant as a rock-type striker. So this is more so a desperation investment in case you really need the rock-type damage for Champion Stadium, for example. So in that sense, it's fine, but Olivia squashes its viability. Here we have support Aerodactyl, and my first instinct is saying this is bad Skyla because they serve similar functions. Aerodactyl can raise the party's defense to +4 stages, and it can also raise attack and speed by a couple of stages. So Fanfare 2 Skyla in particular replicates this role, and you also get all the other benefits that come alongside Skyla. And if you want a rock-type support who can raise defense, there is Roxanne. But Aerodactyl is one of the very rare Pokemon in general who can raise evasion. You get Shifty Striker too, so 30% chance of raising evasion. So that is handy for avoiding AoE damage occasionally, and you can maybe humor tanking with this, although I wouldn't recommend it because you still need intensive potion support for that, and support Eggmons are used awful at tanking, so it wouldn't be the first thing I would recommend. But 1-bar spam is handy, and you also got a Stone Edge for a strong 3-bar option in case you have a lot of gauge to spare. So Aerodactyl can function. Certainly, it can come in handy in case a Champion Stadium week is chock full of physical damage. Aerodactyl could help there. Lastly, we have a Tech Aerodactyl, and this guy's tech gimmick is Rock Slide with Aggravation 1. There's been some changes apparently to how reroll abilities function, and maybe now this is more reliable than before. I am not certain about the details, but case in point, there is a 4-star gacha who replicates this role, and that is Grant and Aurorus. Personal favorite of mine. I've been playing a lot with that unit, and honestly, I think it just performs better than Tech Aerodactyl. Because first off, Grant can raise accuracy with his trainer move, so he can guarantee that he can connect his Rock Slide. And when you're spamming perma-flinch, the last thing you want is missing the Rock Slide altogether and missing that chance of flinching the target. And he also has Snow Shelter and Sand Shelter, so he can function alongside Summer Steven or Acerola and Kukui, for example. That's one of my favorite structures. And Grant can also tank in a pinch because he has a great special defense and he can raise it with one of his trainer moves. And he can also restore health with regeneration, just like Tech Aerodactyl. Now, the difference between Grant and Tech Aerodactyl is that Tech Aerodactyl can raise speed a lot quicker, and he also has a 1-bar spam. So in case you're running short on gauge and you need to keep seeing countdown, Aerodactyl can switch over to Smackdown, where Grant has Rock Tomb, so it's a lot harder to spam with Grant. And that's about it. There is advantages, pros and cons to both of them. I think Grant just performs better in general, but Tech Aerodactyl can serve on more standard structures in case you want the AoE flinching. But Grant does require intensive support to start flinching, intensive engage support, where Aerodactyl has a lot more speed and has the 1-bar spam to help out in that department. Up next is the Golden Batch, and there is no shinies here yet, so no reason to hunt them down. Now, for a Striker Golem, my main qualm with this guy is that your main damaging move is spread damage, it's AoE. And that is really hard to make work in this game, unless you have some chunky multipliers. Because you normally want the focus damage so you can do denials or take down a target quickly, but with spread damage you just do that slowly over time and take out the multiple targets, which can be fine, but enemies have so much HP anyway that you kind of want to single target them. I think it's more efficient in general. And for Golem, it has direct competition with Signal Brock, and you don't see Signal Brock dominating the rock-type metagame whatsoever. It's generally a poor striker, and while Golem can regenerate health, Signal Brock can at least sure-crit his Signux, quote-unquote Signux, and even then, it's still not a great striker. And as far as utility goes, Rock Slide has a 0% chance of flinching, but if you want to do that, you can go to Grant and Aurorus or Tech Aerodactyl, who have Aggravation 1 for the other reroll to flinch. So my opinion has changed on this guy. He's just not that great. If you want to mean with this, you can go to Signal Brock and call it a day. Support Golem suffers from tanking Eggmon syndrome. This is a term I coined because it happens so often on support Eggmons who attempt a tanking kit, but they are held back by their atrocious stats. This is worse than a 3-star Skyla, and Skyla is Skyla. You get a maximum defense for the entire party, and speed and potions, where Golem can only maximize defense for itself. Its best perks are having a mini impervious. You cannot lower this guy's defense and special defense. So if you maximize its stats, I guess you can have a proper tank, but don't bother. There's just better physical tanks in the metagame. Tech Golem, its gimmick is Rock Tomb for single targeted speed drops, and I don't want to get on the debacle of why speed is a poor debuff in general. It's only functional for buffing Cakewalk and Hunter's Instinct. But unfortunately for this guy, he is functionally identical to Brock and Onyx, a free-to-play rock-type simper as well, but Brock can do so much more than just dropping speed. He can tank, he has potion, he has grid multipliers, innate Cakewalk, he can buff it with Haymaker. Just a whole bunch more garbage than whatever Golem can offer. Use the mini impervious, but if a support Golem cannot tank, you can imagine similar results out of Tech Golem. Let's check out the Bellsprout batch next. Here we have a striker Victreebel, who happens to have a niche for free-to-play metagame. This is a physical grass-type striker, and when you think of grass damage, you usually think Gardenia or Brendan, who focus on special grass damage, and physical is kinda left out. In that sense, until you remember that Sycamore and Cernias are coming soon, who are so broken, and they also happen to have Hornleech as a physical grass move. So when Cernias exists, there is no reason to use Victreebel. Yes, Victreebel can raise critical hit rate, I guess, but they just have no hope of competing with Cernias and Sycamore. So very unfortunate. And even then, if you want grass damage, Gardenia generally does that better. So sad case. Support Victreebel is a specialty, is tanking a special damage, you can maximize special defense, you have some decent tanking passives, you get immunity to status and interferences once, and full immunity to sleep, so that is handy for full forces, I guess, but I just don't recommend using tanking Eggmons unless you raise them to their fullest potential. 20 out of 20, 3 out of 3 affinity with just maximum stats on every single department, and even then this is not superb by any means. So with Cernias coming, you see no reason to invest on tanking Eggmons at all now. Tech Victreebel is a new shiny, and it happens to have a broken move in Sleep Powder. Sleep Powder is very powerful in this game. You can do so much with Sleep to crowd control enemies, to sleep lock legendary arenas. It's very cheesy, and if you know how to use it, you can breeze through the stages. Now the difference between Tech Victreebel and other Sleep Eggmons is that Tech Executor and Tech Venusaur have a Troublemaker 1 as an innate passive, and that is not the case for Tech Victreebel. And Troublemaker 1 is really important because it fixes sleep accuracy. You only have a 75% chance of hitting innately with sleep moves, where Troublemaker 1 raises it to 100% theoretically. And it means that you have to give Victreebel the Loki skill, or give it accurate support for it to be reliable at its role, where you don't have that issue with Tech Executor or with Tech Venusaur. And if you don't have a reliable sleeper, then you could use Ramos instead. And Ramos, besides having the exact same Pokemon, just has a better kit in general. He also has a sleep, he can Bullet Seed, Defense Crush 2, he has a multiplier derived from sleep, he can regenerate health and raise attack, and Ramos just has better stats and a better performance in general, while also needing Troublemaker 1 as a lucky skill. So my only recommendation for this is investing if you want to do a full sleep champion stadium run, but otherwise there is no reason to use this when Ramos exists, because they have the same issues and Ramos performs better. Up next is the Primeape batch, and my opinion hasn't really changed since the first time I analyzed these, although I have actually used them in combat now. But for Striker Primeape, this guy has a direct competition with Bruno and Machamp, who have an identical kit, the exact same moves. Bruno also has Cross Chop and One Bar Spam, but Bruno raises a special defense while Primeape maximizes speed. So in a practical sense, Primeape is easier to use because the gauge management is a lot easier with this guy. You have Amp at 4 for overkill speed, and this can also be handy for sleep locking, although that is very advanced. And Bruno is stronger and is bulkier, so there is advantages, but I don't recommend either of them as fighting type strikers because Corina has the accurate close combat, while Cross Chop needs accuracy to always land. Now, one key advantage that Bruno has over Striker Primeape is that he has Dire Heal Plus, while Striker Primeape only has Raise You. So Striker Primeape needs to use Raise You a couple times to maximize critical hit rate for Cross Chop, while Bruno only has to use Dire Heal Plus once. So that is important for things like Battle Villa climbing or efficient battles, where Bruno can always land crits with Cross Chop with only one use of Dire Hit Plus, while Primeape is a little bit slower on buffing. So those differences matter, but it's minimal. I don't know, it depends on what you like using, but like I said, I think Lucario is better anyway. Support Primeape has a unique trait in a sense, because currently it's the only Eggmon with party-wide crit buffs, Dire Hit All. This is amazing. Crit buffs is a rare quality, even amongst 5-star gachas, and crit buffs are instrumental for quick battles because they bypass Reflect, Light Screen, crits bypass defensive buffs, so certain amazing strikers kinda struggle because they cannot bypass defenses, for example N and Gloria, and Primeape can provide a support, so that alone merits consideration. It also has some incidental attack and speed buffs, just a tiny bit, and one bar spam for gauge management, and also regeneration upon entry, so that is handy for quick battles like Champion Stadium. But this puts support Primeape in direct competition with Maylin and Torchic. Torchic has better buffs, and it can also raise speed and function as a gauge battery, where Maylin has better tanking potential, and she can also drain HP, and if set up right, then Maylin can just constantly regenerate health by attacking. So Primeape is handier for shorter battles, I would say. Tech Primeape. I would classify this guy as a bruiser because you have Rock Smash with Honor Roll 1. So that means that you have an additional reroll for dropping defenses. And in my experience, this means guaranteed debuffs. I have never seen Tech Primeape ever miss a defense drop with Rock Smash. And that is great. I am a huge advocate for defense drops in this game. They are very potent and they can soften up enemies very nicely for your main striker. Now the difference between Tech Primeape and other defense droppers like Kukui or Nanu is that the Primeape damages the target while doing that, and you can give a Primeape Defense Crush 2 as a lucky skill and get another defense drop if it procs. So that can be very efficient, but I will still use Leer for this because Rock Smash takes more gauge than Leer, and Leer is more efficient because it's AoE drops. Primeape is not bad, but if you can only buff its offenses, I would think it's handier. But currently you have Broly, who can also spam Rock Smash for a living and has Potion and a lot more bulk, where Tech Primeape guarantees the defense drop, but it has very little utility outside of that. Last, and honestly, least, here we have the Machamp batch. Striker Machamp is a new shiny, and it's a fine striker. It has an accurate 3-bar move with a downside that drops defenses, but you can mitigate that through supports or through lucky skills. You can raise defenses, crit, and your attack, so it's self-sufficient. You have a 1-bar spam, some okay multipliers. The problem though is that this gives direct competition to Corina and Lucario, who is a free-to-play fighting type striker who also use close combat as their main damaging move. But Corina has a Mega Evolution, way more attack, you get Power Reserves 5 for a better multiplier, grid benefits, I don't know. Corina can also maximize speed to make up the fact that she has less speed than Striker Machamp, so when Corina exists, I see no reason to use this. Oh boy. Oh no. Here we have Support Machamp. And after sitting on it, after analyzing every Eggmon in the game, I would say this is the worst Eggmon available. Because it not only has a terrible toolkit, it has a toolkit that fights itself to not function. So, Support Machamp raises attack and speed for entire party one stage. There are so many Eggmons who already do this. If you want a 1-bar spam with Strike Together, you can go to Support Primeape. But the problem though is that you maximize attack. You have X attack, by the way, so you can use Karate Chop. Karate Chop is your only physical move, and you also have a physical sync, I guess, but a funny meme. And your other gimmick is Focus Blast, but you have nothing to fix Focus Blast. You cannot raise a special attack or accuracy. So if you want to humor using Focus Blast, there is Wally, there is Sol Galeo. Wow. There is no sensible reason to be using Support Machamp, but you know, I love memeing and I think I want to invest on one just to showcase it. Tech Machamp is similar to Tech Golem in a lot of ways, because the gimmick here is single targeted speed drops. And unfortunately, there you have Brock Canonics with Rock Tomb who do the same thing and so much more. They can tank, they have potion, they have grid multipliers, etc, etc. But Tech Machamp has accurate single targeted speed drops, that is its only perk, but Rock Tomb is still 95% accuracy, so it's not like you can salvage much out of this. And there you go, here is my recommendations derived from the Egg Guide, but I tried to be more succinct with this analysis because it's all rehashes from previous Egg events, so hopefully next month we get something more exciting. If DNA keeps repeating Egg batches, I will probably stop doing the analysis videos, unless there is something I haven't covered before. But until then, I hope you still enjoyed watching this video, and hope you stay safe and healthy, and I hope to see you another time.